Good afternoon, everyone. So, today we have come to the last topic of our course, which is Hyperledger Fabric. So, what we'll be covering here is that we'll be covering the fundamentals of Hyperledger Fabric. That is, you'll be able to understand what a Hyperledger Fabric is, what the components of the Hyperledger Fabric are, how the transactions are executed, and how the smart contracts work in Hyperledger Fabric. So this is a very brief module where we'll only be covering the overview of the Hyperledger Fabric. So the objective here is to understand how the Hyperledger Fabric works, rather the overview of the Hyperledger Fabric. So we'll start with understanding what a Hyperledger Fabric is in blockchain. So, in a very basic sense, Hyperledger Fabric can be thought of as a blockchain. So, we'll first see why did we need, or like what was the need to have a Hyperledger Fabric. So, the first and the most widely recognized application of blockchain was the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. Though Bitcoin was the first use case of blockchain, there have been many other cryptocurrencies that have followed in its footsteps. So we have another currency that we have studied, which is Ethereum, an alternative currency, and it took a different approach. It integrated many of the same characteristics that Bitcoin had, but it added smart contracts to its platform in order to establish distributed applications. So Bitcoin can be thought of as like generation zero cryptocurrency, where it was kind of a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Ethereum followed in its footsteps, and Ethereum became an alternative cryptocurrency, but it took a different approach. It integrated many of the same characteristics that were present with Bitcoin, but it also added something known as smart contracts to allow the platform to be used for different kind of applications. You can use smart contract to develop different applications. Now, both Bitcoin and Ethereum follow into a class of cryptocurrencies, or both Bitcoin and Ethereum, they can be thought of, or they fall into a class of blockchain that we would classify as a public permissionless blockchain technology. Okay. What I'm saying is, if you think of Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a public blockchain. It is permissionless. You do not need permission to join the Bitcoin ecosystem. Okay. Next is Ethereum. Ethereum is also a public blockchain. It is also a permissionless blockchain. Public in the sense that anybody can have access to the blockchain. If I want to use Bitcoin, if I want to use Ethereum, I simply have to download the Bitcoin client software or the Ethereum wallet, and I can start accessing the network. Permissionless because it is not, it is an open system. Anybody who has the software can put through transactions to get their transactions verified. So Bitcoin and Ethereum would be classified as public permissionless blockchain technology. So basically, these are public networks that are open to anyone, where participants interact anonymously. You don't use your names. It is a public network. It is open to anyone who wants to join. And there is pseudo anonymity, or rather, you can say you interact anonymously. Why? Because you're using your public addresses for, you can say, interaction with other participants of the network. Now, as the popularity of Bitcoin and Ethereum start to grow, as it grew, there were few other derivative technologies that came up. And all of these technologies also, what their goal was that they will also use the underlying technology of the blockchain, of the distributed ledger, of the distributed application, but they will not make a public blockchain system. They will make a blockchain that could be used by enterprises, by organizations, by different companies in the world. So what they did was that instead of making it open to anyone, making it a public blockchain, they made it a private blockchain. Okay. So this Hyperledger Fabric, it is not a public blockchain. You and I cannot just access it. And it is also not meant for users like you and me. It is meant for companies who want to use like the potential of blockchain technology to drive their business. Businesses, enterprises, they leverage the potential of this technology, they use it in their business. So as the popularity of like Ethereum, Bitcoin, these cryptocurrency grew, what Hyperledger Fabric did was it was applying the underlying technology of blockchain, the distributed ledger technology, to innovate enterprises, to allow a blockchain to be developed that could be used with enterprises. Now, why did it decide on the blockchain to be a private blockchain? We'll see why could it not be a public blockchain? So if you think about enterprises, then enterprises are, you can think of enterprises as companies or businesses. So the reason why enterprises could not have a public blockchain system was because they have additional performance requirements. Okay. And sometimes you are building application where you need to know who your participant is. You need to know the identity of your participant. Okay. So the reason Hyperledger Fabric decided on being a enterprise blockchain and also a, you can say, a private blockchain is because the performance characteristics that the permissionless blockchain technologies provide that is not able to deliver the demand of the network. So what we are saying is, see, there are two kinds of blockchain. If you have a blockchain, blockchain can either be thought of as permission blockchain or blockchain can be thought of as permissionless blockchain. Okay. Now, in both of these cases, permissionless would make it a public blockchain and this permission blockchain would make it a private blockchain. Okay. And we know permissionless blockchain would include Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay. And here we are saying that a permission blockchain is a Hyperledger Fabric. The reason why Hyperledger Fabric is a permission blockchain, because if you remember, in both Bitcoin and Ethereum, we are making use of a proof of work consensus protocol. Now, proof of work consensus protocol makes use of different miners on the network who use their computational power to, you can say, verify transactions, add block to the blockchain. Also, they also have certain transaction fees associated with them. That is, if you want to get your transaction approved, you will have to pay a higher fees. And there is also a block building time, that is, what is the interval that goes by between two successive blocks. So what Hyperledger Fabric realized was that there is, you can say, like like the current permissionless blockchain technologies were not able to deliver the required performance characteristics that the enterprises would require. Okay. So what Hyperledger Fabric did was they needed to have certain requirements in order to develop a blockchain. So the requirements were that the participant must be identifiable. Why the participant must be identifiable? So the requirements were that the participant must be identifiable. Now assume that there is an enterprise that is working on KYC. Okay. So if you're working on an application that like involves KYC, then you need to know the identity. Identity of the participant would be a hard requirement. So first requirement is that all the participants should be identifiable. Okay. And also why identity is so important is because in case of financial transactions where there is know your customer or there is anti-money laundering, regulations must be followed within an enterprises. And for that reason, participants must be identifiable. Next important requirement is that the networks should be permissioned. All those who are part of the enterprise should only be able to access the blockchain network. The information should not be available to anybody on the network. It should only be available to the people who work inside the enterprises. Then there should be high transaction throughput. We should have high throughput, that is high amount of transactions should go through. High amount of transactions should go through. Okay. Next requirement is that there should be low latency. There should not be a lot of lag in the network. Also, this is important, low latency, because we want a very, very greater transaction confirmation. Because we will now be working with real-time hard deadline conditions. And the final requirement is that privacy and confidentiality of transactions and data pertaining to business transactions should be maintained. So there should be privacy and confidentiality of business transaction. So these are the following 5 requirements. So Hyperledger Fabric made use of the performance characteristics or the underlying technology that is driving Bitcoin and Ethereum, but it wanted to develop a permission system that can be used by businesses, by enterprises, by organizations. And for that, it identified that the model that is available with Bitcoin and Ethereum is not enough. For enterprise use, we need to consider the following requirements that are present over here. That is, the transaction should be identifiable. Participants also should be identifiable. The blockchain should be, the network should be permissioned. There should be a high throughput in the system. Transaction confirmation should be involve low latency, and there should be privacy and confidentiality of business transactions. Okay. So Hyperledger Fabric developed a blockchain platform which is adapted only for enterprise use. So Hyperledger Fabric started out as a blockchain that it will only develop its platform to be used by enterprises. So in the following sections, we'll see how Hyperledger Fabric differentiates itself from other blockchain platforms and what is its architecture like. So Hyperledger Fabric, you can say, is an open source enterprise permissioned distributed ledger technology. Okay. It is open source, it is enterprise, it is permissioned, and it is a distributed ledger technology. Okay. And it has been designed for use in context of enterprises. Okay. Now, this Hyperledger Fabric consists of various components. Okay. The various components that are present in the Hyperledger fabric include: we will have peers, we will have clients, we will have ordering services, we will have, which is something known as the membership service provider, and we will have the chain code. Chain code is nothing but the smart contract. In blockchain, we call the smart contract. Here in Hyperledger Fabric, we call the smart contract as chain code. So Hyperledger Fabric was initially developed by the Linux Foundation, and it has been developed for enterprises. So Hyperledger Fabric has a very modular and configurable architecture, meaning that it has a lot of plug and play type of concepts. Okay, so if you're building your blockchain, it will allow you, okay, if you want to use this kind of consensus mechanism, we will allow you to use this kind of consensus mechanism. What are the kind of functionality that you want? You will have a module for that also. Do you want to use smart contracts? You can use smart contracts also. Then one of the biggest advantages is that Fabric is the first distributed ledger platform that supports smart contracts but in general purpose programming language. So Hyperledger Fabric also gives you the functionality of writing smart contracts not just in Solidity but in other general purpose programming languages like Java, Go, Node.js, and you don't have to constrain yourself to the domain specific language, which in the case of Solidity, in case of smart contracts is Solidity. Okay. So this is another advantage, that is you do not have to write every smart contract in Solidity. You can use the general purpose programming languages that you are familiar with. Okay. So Fabric has a very highly modular and configurable architecture, and it is being used for a broad range of industry use cases. It is being used in banking, in finance, in insurance, healthcare, human resources, supply chain, and there has been one recent development, that is Hyperledger Fabric is also now being used in digital music delivery systems. Okay. And it was developed or established under the Linux Foundation. So this is a brief overview of Hyperledger Fabric, which is that it is a permissioned blockchain, it is open source, it has been developed by the Linux Foundation, and it has a very modular structure which allows you to use different types of flexible modules to develop your blockchain network. Now, there are certain components here as we have studied with different blockchains, and that include peer nodes, clients, ordering services, membership service providers, and chain code. Then the transaction flow here consists of four phases: endorsements, ordering, validation, and committing. We'll see all of these as we go through the presentation. And in Hyperledger Fabric, the smart contract, we call it as the chain code. And the key idea behind developing the Hyperledger Fabric technology and making it modular was that it gives you the design and development flexibility. You can use different modules as per your convenience, as per your use case. If you want to develop a smaller application, you can use one type of consensus. If you want to, if like there is a constraint that you want faster transaction verification, then you will not go for proof of work, you will go for some other different consensus protocol. So Hyperledger Fabric gives you the flexibility of bringing different modular, you can say, components into the blockchain as per your convenience. So Hyperledger Fabric is different from some other blockchain systems in the sense that it is private and it is permissioned. In all the public blockchain systems, there were unknown identities that were participating in the network. But here in Hyperledger Fabric, there is this concept which is known as the membership service provider. So membership service provider is kind of, you can say, a component of the Hyperledger Fabric that issues and maintain identities of all the nodes that are part of the Hyperledger Fabric system. So what the membership service provider, which is the MSP, what it does is it has the task of issuing and maintaining identities. So if I am a node on a Hyperledger Fabric, then MSP will give me an identity and it will also maintain a record of that identity. And the issuing and maintaining of the identities is handled via the standard your public key infrastructure, which is public and private key system, and that is based on digital signatures. Okay, so we are saying that the membership service provider has the task of maintaining the identities on the network. So if you look at this here, we're saying we have a MSP on the network. Now the role of MSP is to issue and maintain identities of nodes. Okay. So MSP has the task of maintaining and issuing the identities of nodes on the blockchain network. Now in Hyperledger Fabric, nodes are of three types. There are three types of node on the Hyperledger Fabric. And those are, what we have is a client, the second node is a peer, and the third type of node that we have is the orderer. Okay. So in Hyperledger Fabric, MSP has been given the task, or it is a module that will issue and maintain identities. Identity mean the public private key pair that we have, and it involves the digital signature, that is digitally signing your transactions, which we have already studied with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now we'll talk about nodes. We are saying that in Hyperledger Fabric, we have three kinds of nodes. We have clients, we have peers, and we have orderers on the network. Okay. Now, nodes here are taking up to one of the three roles: the client, the peers, and the orderer. Now, the most common that we know about is the peer. So the peer maintain a copy of the blockchain and validate the transactions. So this is what we already know. They maintain the copy of blockchain and they validate transactions on the network. Okay. They validate transactions on the network. Okay. Next we have is a orderer. Now what orderer does is, orderer will establish the order of all transactions that happen on the Hyperledger Fabric. Orderer will ensure the order of transaction that happen on the blockchain. And then we have a client. Client is a node that will execute the smart contracts. Client is the node that will execute the smart contracts. So here we have three kinds of nodes: the client, the peers, and the orderer. We are already familiar with the peer, which maintains the copy of the blockchain and it validates the transactions on the blockchain network. Then we have the orderer, which maintains the order of execution of transactions that happen on the blockchain. And third is the client. Client are nodes that you can say execute these smart contracts, and you can also say that client will initiate transaction on the network. Okay. So client, if you can see here, the roles of different participants of the network have been divided. We have clients that propose transactions on the network. We have peers that maintain the state of the network and the copy of the ledger. Okay. And then we have the orderers that accept the transactions, order them into block, and deliver the block to the peers. So this here is the role that we have of the nodes within the Hyperledger Fabric network. Okay. So there are three roles here: the client, the peer, and the orderer. Okay. Client execute the smart contract. They also initiate the transaction, or you can say in terms of Hyperledger Fabric, you propose the transaction. You are proposing the transaction. Okay. Now, so we have three roles here: client, peer, and orderer. Peers maintain the copy of blockchain, validate the transaction, that is, they maintain the state of the network, and a copy of the ledger. Copy of the blockchain means the copy of the ledger that we are using. Okay. Now there are two types of peers that are present on our Hyperledger Fabric network. There are two types of peers. One are known as the endorsing peers, and the other are known as the committing peers. Okay. We have two kind of peers on our Hyperledger Fabric network, which are the endorsing peers and the committing peers. Okay. Now, endorsing peers, what they do is they simulate and endorse transactions. We'll see what this means when we understand the transaction lifecycle in a Hyperledger Fabric. But they have two responsibilities. They simulate and endorse transactions, and we have committing peers, which are called the committers. You have committers. What the committers do is they verify the endorsements. They verify endorsements and they validate the transactions. And all of this is done prior to committing the blocks to the distributed ledger. And then our orderer, which takes the task of the ordering service, it is the task of the orderer to accept the endorsed transactions, order them on the into a block, and deliver the block to the committing peers. Okay. So this is the role, different roles within a Hyperledger Fabric. That is, what are the different roles of nodes within the Hyperledger Fabric. So first we have is the client. Client will execute the smart contract. Okay. It will also propose transactions on the network. Then we have peer. Peer will maintain the copy of the blockchain or the ledger, and it will validate the transactions on the network. Now we have two kinds of peers. We have the endorsers and we have the committers. That is, we have endorsing peers and we have the committing peers. Okay. They can take any of these roles, but technically all peers commit block to the blockchain network. Now endorsers, what they will do is simulate and endorse the transactions. Committers or the committing peers, they will verify those endorsements, validate the transactions prior to committing them to the blockchain. And then we have the orderer that has the task of the ordering, or it has the ordering service. The orderer accepts the endorsed transactions, it accepts the transactions, orders the transactions, compiles them into a block, and delivers that block to the committing peers. Okay. So this is the three roles that the nodes can have in the Hyperledger Fabric network. Okay. So if you look at this here, so we have talked about peer nodes, that is the endorsers and the committers. We have clients that propose transactions and initiate smart contracts. We have ordering services that order the transactions that happen on the blockchain, commit them into, like, compile them into a block and send them to the committing peers to commit the blockchain. Then we have membership service provider, which we have already talked about. Membership service provider has the task of issuing and maintaining the identities of all the nodes that participate on the Hyperledger Fabric. And then we have the chain code, which is nothing but smart contracts, as we call it on the Hyperledger Fabric. And each of these, as we have seen, has different roles and different responsibilities. So all of them have unique roles for different purposes. Now, the transaction flow that happens on the Hyperledger Fabric has four main phases. Okay. The four main phases include the endorsement, ordering, validation, and committing. So let us see how all of these phases work on the Hyperledger Fabric. Okay. So okay. So what we'll see is the how transactions are executed on the Hyperledger Fabric. We'll talk about transaction execution on Hyperledger Fabric. Okay. So transactions on Hyperledger Fabric. Now, if you think about different blockchains that we have already studied previously. Now, both the Bitcoin and the Ethereum blockchain, their life cycle of a transaction is usually order execute, in which order means the transactions are added to the ledger in some order. They are disseminated to all the peers. Transactions are then executed and they are added to the blockchain. Okay. So you're initiating a transaction, you're verifying the transaction is executed, and it is stored on the, like, a block is created and the block is stored on the blockchain. Now here, what model we follow in Hyperledger Fabric is, in Hyperledger Fabric, we follow four main phases. There is endorsement, ordering, validation, and committing. So we have endorsement, then we have ordering, we have validation, and then we have committing. Okay. These are the four phases that are followed in the Hyperledger Fabric. Okay. So what this means is, let us see what endorsement, what ordering, what validation, and what committing means on a Hyperledger Fabric network. Okay. Now, what exactly happens is that within a Hyperledger Fabric network, transactions start out with a client application sending transaction proposals. So what exactly is happening is, we will have a client application, some application over here. Okay. We will have some client application over here, and what this client application is doing is, this will send transaction proposal. Okay. So the step one is, transaction proposal. So we have step 1 will be transaction proposal. Okay. So what this step means that within Hyperledger Fabric network, whenever you initiate a transaction, the transaction will be initiated by a client. We have already seen that client is also a node on the network that has the responsibility to initiate smart contracts, initiate or propose transactions. So transactions start out with a client application which will send transaction proposals. Okay. So it will send transaction proposals. And to whom would it send the transaction proposals? It would send the transaction proposals to the endorsing peers. Okay. It will send the transaction proposal to the endorsing peers. Then here we'll have an endorsing peer. Okay. So the transactions start out with a transaction proposal. Your client will send the transaction proposal to the endorsing peers. Client applications are commonly referred to as the applications and or clients, and it allows people to communicate within the blockchain networks. Okay, so this is the step 1. Next we come to step 2. Step 2, what it does is, what the endorsing peers now will do is, as soon as they receive the transactions, the endorsing peers, they will try to simulate the proposed transactions. All of these endorsing peers, they will try to simulate the proposed transactions without updating them on the ledger. So this is only simulation that we are doing. So the endorsing peers will simulate the proposed transaction without making any updation to the ledger. The endorsing peers, what they will do is, they will simulate the transactions, and what this simulation will achieve is, this simulation will tell them what are the read operations, or what you can say what is being read from the blockchain and what is being written to the blockchain. So what read operations are performing, by what read operation the transaction is performing, and what transactions are getting updated when the transactions are getting executed. So what we are doing here is, a client is sending out transaction proposal to the endorsing peers. Now the endorsing peers are simulating the proposed transactions without updating them on the ledger. And what is the simulation? The endorsing peers will capture what was read from the blockchain and what will be written to the blockchain when the transaction has been executed. So it will do two things. It will understand what is read from blockchain and what will be written to the state of the blockchain when the transaction executes. Okay. So what will be written to the blockchain when the transactions execute? So this is step 2. Step 2 means you have endorsers that simulate transactions. So endorsers simulate the transaction. So this is step 2. Okay. Now let us see what will happen next as the transaction executes. Now, a transaction endorsement will result in specifying whether the transaction should be executed or not. So we will have an endorsement policy that will tell that, okay, if the majority of the endorsing peers want the transaction to be endorsed, then the transaction will be endorsed, transaction will be executed, otherwise it will not. So these endorsing peers simulate the transaction to see what changes will happen on the blockchain. Then they will see whether or not this transaction should be deployed. Okay. So example of an endorsement policy could be like majority of endorsing peers must endorse the transaction, or 61% of the endorsing peers must endorse the transaction. Okay. So different, since Hyperledger Fabric is like a plug and play kind of blockchain, different blockchains could have their own endorsement policies. Okay. Now, what will happen is the application will then submit the endorsed transactions to the ordering services. So as a result of this, some transactions would be identified as being endorsed. Okay, some transaction would be identified as being endorsed. That is, okay, these transactions will be executed. Now what will happen is your application will submit the endorsed transaction to the ordering service. Endorsed transactions will be submitted to the ordering service. So your endorsed transactions are being submitted to your ordering service. Step 1 is transaction proposal. It goes to the endorsing peers. Endorsing peers simulate the transaction to see what changes are happening on the blockchain. They will, endorsing peer can have their own endorsing policy to decide whether or not they will endorse the transaction. Once the transactions have been endorsed, the endorsed transaction go to the, you can say, the ordering services. Okay. Now the ordering service takes the endorsed transactions and delivers the block to all the committing peers. So all the transactions that are received to the orderer, what will it do is it will compile them into a block and send them to the committing peer. So your orderer here, this is step 3, endorsed transaction go to orderer. Then in step 4, what will happen is, in step 4, your ordering service will form a block. That is, it will order the transactions, form a block and send it to committing peers. Okay. So ordering services will take the endorsed transactions, compile that information into a block, and it will deliver the block to all the committing peers. So ordering service or the orderer, there will be not one orderer. Remember, we are talking about a blockchain, the information is distributed. So we will have a cluster of orderers that are not processing transactions, not processing smart contracts, not maintaining the ledgers. The only, you can say, goal of the ordering service is to accept the endorsed transaction, specify the order in which those transactions will be committed to the ledger. Okay. So this ordering service is composed, this ordering service over here is composed of a cluster of orderers. You will have a cluster of orderers that are not concerned with how the transactions are initiated, how the transactions are verified, nothing of that sort. They will only take the endorsed transaction, compile that information into a block, and send it to the committing peers. That will be sent to the committing peers. We have committing peers and that will be sent to them. Okay. Now, once the transactions have been ordered, when the transaction have been sent to the committing peers, now what will happen? Okay. The committing peer will validate the transaction by checking that whatever transactions are mentioned in the block, they match the current world state. Now, what does this mean? It goes to the committed peers. Okay. It goes to the committing peer, and we see what happens in step 5. Now, the committing peers will get the block. Now, what the committing peers will do is, the committing peer will validate the transactions. Committing peers will validate the transactions in each block. They will validate the transaction in each block. How do they do it? If you remember, we were talking about simulation here. That is, if these transactions get executed, certain changes will be made to the blockchain. Okay. So the committing peers validate the transaction by checking to make sure that whatever read operations or write operations have happened, they still match the current world state. Specifically, that whatever read data that existed when the endorsers simulated the transaction is identical to the current world state. Okay, so here you are simulating that to see what changes will happen. All of these data goes to the ordering service that orders the transaction. It also has certain other information about the simulation. Now the committing peer will check, okay, it says that when these transactions execute, this will be the state of the blockchain. So before what the state is, after what the state is, that is what is the read and the write state of the blockchain. So it will check the read state to ensure that whatever the read state of the blockchain now is, that is same as the current state of the blockchain. Now the committing peer will validate the transactions. Transaction is written to the ledger and the blockchain is updated. Okay. So this is how the transaction execution happens on the blockchain network. There is one last step which is known as transaction flow. Here, the committing peers will asynchronously notify the client on the success or failure of the transactions. Okay. So the committing peer is telling the client whether the transaction was a success or not. Okay. So the last step here will be that once the transaction is validated, it will go to a notification, will go to the client to tell whether the transaction was success or a transaction was a failure. Okay. So this is the transaction execution on Hyperledger Fabric. Number 1 step is endorsement. Number 2 is ordering, validation, and committing. Okay. So this is how transaction execution happens on the blockchain network. And this is what is mentioned in the slide here. That is, transaction flow consists of 4 main phases. We have endorsement, we have ordering, we have validation, and then we have committing. So we have gone through all of this. Hyperledger Fabric offers many pluggable options. Your ledger can be stored in different formats. You can use different consensus mechanism. You can have different membership providers. That is what kind of public private like infrastructure you want to use, whether you want to use some SHA algorithm or you want to use a different digital signature algorithm. All of these options are available in a pluggable manner. That is, you decide what components would your blockchain comprise of. Okay. So Hyperledger Fabric also offers channels. Okay. If you think of it as WhatsApp, you are chatting with different people on the WhatsApp. And with each person, you have a different channel. If you're sending something to your friend, only he is receiving that. Your mother, your father is not receiving that. So you have a channel that allows you to send information to your friend. Similarly, here on Hyperledger Fabric also, we have channels that allow a group of participants to create a separate ledger of transaction, to have their own ledger and update information on that ledger. So this is one of the very important options that are provided by the Hyperledger Fabric network when you do not want some of your information to be shared with all the participants. So it is useful in this scenario. Suppose you have a enterprise, all right. This enterprise has been deployed on a Hyperledger Fabric network. But there are certain, you can say, functionalities within your enterprises that is not known to every employee. There is certain information that is kept in the tier 1 only. So that information can be protected and not shared with other participants by creating another different channel within your blockchain network, and those transactions would only be visible to the participants of that network. So this is the overview of your Hyperledger. Here are some of the benefits. The network is permissioned, it is decentralized, it is not open. You can use it for enterprises. Then confidential transactions. Since you are developing a private blockchain network, your transaction is only exposed to the people you want to share it with. Then we have the pluggable architecture. Now, previously with Bitcoin, with Ethereum, it was like one size fits all approach. But here, rather than taking a one size fits all approach, we have a very pluggable architecture which allows you to have different plugins. Plugins for consensus, plugins for what kind of language you have, plugins for, you can say, the channels that you create, plugins for what endorsement policies that you'll have. All of that is a pluggable architecture. You can tailor your blockchain to meet your needs. Then it is very easy to get started. Programming your smart contracts on Hyperledger Fabric is very easy because you do not have to learn any custom language. You do not have to learn Solidity. Instead, you can write your smart contracts in the general purpose programming languages, which is like you can use Java, you can use Golang, you can use Node.js if you're familiar with, and you can start writing your smart contracts. So these are the benefits of having a Hyperledger. We'll stop here. If you have any questions, please do ask. Otherwise, you can drop your enrollment numbers and we can end the class.